It's time to have your say. Welcome back to the Q&A, answering your questions on WWE, AEW, and much, much more straight after this. Coming up in today's show on AskSCW, we're going to be talking about the Cora Jade heel turn on Roxanne Perez. Was it a good thing? Was it rushed? We'll have to wait and see. I'm going to be talking about as well Impact Wrestling and Ring of Honor. Should they work together with a particular stable that used to work in Ring of Honor and now working with Impact Wrestling to come and invade Ring of Honor again? Also going to be talking about Jarrett being the special guest referee at SummerSlam, what that means. We're going to be talking about Liv Morgan and Ronda Rousey, how we can make that feud to its full potential going into SummerSlam. And I'm going to be kicking things off, suggesting could we be getting new champions at SummerSlam this year. But this is AskSCW. If you want to be involved on the next episode, then all you've got to do is drop a question in the comments below with the hashtag AskSCW, and I'll give you a shout out and answer your question on video. As well as that, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. All should be up on your screen right about now. And just before we get started, make sure to like this video, share with a friend, and subscribe as well. But without further ado, let's get on with our first question this week. And it comes from Bama Dave saying, we've already said we think Drew McIntyre is beating Roman Reigns at WWE's Clash at the Castle. Is it now time, just before that, for the Usos to lose their belts to the Street Profits Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins? Fantastic question to kick things off this week. For me personally, the Usos definitely need to lose those championships before Roman Reigns. So if Roman is going to drop those belts at Clash of the Castle to Drew McIntyre, then yes, the Usos do need to drop the championships as well. Now, whether that be at SummerSlam against the Street Profits or against another tag team on the road to Clash at the Castle, or even at Clash at the Castle itself, because what better way to put pressure on the tribal chief and cracks in the bloodline than the Usos to drop those championships first. It adds a different narrative, a different story. We've had such a dominant bloodline for the last couple of years in WWE. Now, the Street Profits for me feel like they are the best built tag team to go and do so, but WWE have put in this little seed about the idea of these guys not being on the same page backstage, and potentially a split up could be on the card. So if WWE are going to do that, then it won't be Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins. But it does feel like on TV that they kind of ignore that when they do their tag team matches. And for me personally, I think it would be a good rise above hate story if the Street Profits were to be the ones to win those championships. Now, it's an interesting storyline narrative they've had going into SummerSlam as well. Personally for me, I would be fully in favour of a title change, and I think personally for me, the Usos will drop those championships at some stage in the next couple of weeks, whether it's at SummerSlam or by Clash of the Castle. It just depends whether it be against the Street Profits or somebody else. But why it could be at SummerSlam against the Street Profits goes perfectly into our next question. And it comes from Ovid Manice from the Hard Hitting Wrestling Show. Who has the advantage in the Undisputed Tag Team Championship with Jeff Jarrett as a special guest referee? Interesting question for me. I would have to say the Street Profits, purely because Jeff Jarrett, of course, is from Nashville. Seems to be the only reason why Jeff Jarrett would be put in this position, because SummerSlam is in Nashville, Tennessee, Music City after all. Will we see a guitar being broken over somebody? Will we hear Jeff Jarrett call someone slapnuts? We'll have to wait and see. But personally for me, it's the only reason why I can see Jeff Jarrett is there. He's got no tag team experience, no relationship with either tag team either. I was sure Sami Zayn was going to be that special guest referee and the advantage would have gone to the Usos. But we've got a neutral field. Maybe Jeff Jarrett will turn and actually do his usual thing of being a heel and cost the baby faces. But I personally don't see that. I think he's going to call it right down the middle. So the advantage for that does of course go to the Street Profits. But will this mean that perhaps someone like Sami Zayn will still try and get involved in the match to try and cause things to go in the Usos' way? Remains to be seen. But for me, it's interesting to see how it will go down. But definitely the Street Profits definitely feel like they could be a potential winner now, looking at WWE SummerSlam this year. And just before I go on to the next question, take the Jeff Jarrett being included in the match out of there. I'm really enjoying this storyline with the Street Profits and the Usos. The fact that the referee counts have kind of cost both teams now at this stage. It's been very well put together, and it's protected both teams as well in the heat of battle. It feels like a very important tag team match going into SummerSlam this year. So kudos must go to WWE for that bit of storytelling. Of course, though, on the flip side, it does make you worry about every other match that's got a normal referee that will be booking at SummerSlam. But hey, we shouldn't put logic into this now, should we? Next question comes from Martin Lorenzo Carrillo. What is the right way or move to do Ronda Rousey and Liv Morgan's feud to make it a high-profile match at SummerSlam? I think the most obvious way that you could make this more high-profile in a quicker time frame would be to turn Ronda Rousey heel. That's what people want to see. They don't want to see babyface Ronda. They want to see it as a dominant heel. But the thing is, the second she becomes the dominant heel, she automatically has to win that championship back from Liv Morgan, in my personal opinion. I think it's the babyface that's sort of letting her guard down that I think could be her weakness going into this rematch. And right now, WWE are sort of playing this card of how Ronda Rousey can beat Natalya in a very quick time. Liv Morgan can get the job done, but she can't get it done as quick and efficient as Ronda Rousey, putting it in as the underdog to this SummerSlam match. So that's the angle WWE are going with this. I think that is a good angle that they're going to do in the meantime. I think a beat the clock challenge could make a bit of sense going into next Friday's SmackDown, whether it's different opponents or whether it's 1 week one match, then the second week the other match. And maybe we could just tease the idea that Ronda Rousey is taking Liv Morgan just a bit lightly here going into this match, so that when Ronda Rousey doesn't win the match, because I'm going to give that prediction away now, I think Liv Morgan is going to retain. She's going to hold that championship for at least a couple of months, in my personal opinion, until we've got this new shape of SmackDown after the draft this year. She'll be the champion going in, and then they'll make the plans of what they're going to do going into Survivor Series, Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, etc. But I expect her to retain against Ronda Rousey, and I think the way to do that is for people to make Phil live like the underdog, because more people will get behind her. And at the same time, I think if Ronda Rousey kind of doesn't take it so seriously, maybe someone like a Charlotte Flair returning could cost her. That can take that feud back off. Or simply by losing, she could turn heel after the match because she simply felt that she should have got the job done and didn't. Next question comes from Anthony New. What are your thoughts on Cora Jade turning heel? It was a bit rushed, wasn't it? Let's be fair. I said that we had a lot of potential of having a great story with Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade as best friends, winning the tag team championships as they did, having a long drawn out story, and then perhaps maybe in 3 to 6 months, then they could have actually pulled the trigger and made Cora Jade turn heel, and then we could have got a big program with these two, perhaps with the championship involved. Could have been the Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa with the women's division in 2022 going into 2023, but instead, WWE doesn't care about women's tag team championships, do they? Let's be fair, they've not done anything with the main roster ones. Now they've been taken away from Toxic Attraction and been put here on these two ladies. Well, is it going to become vacant? Are they just going to lose the championships this week on NXT? It's very, very weird storytelling how they've gone about this. Now, I'm guessing Cora Jade has got jealous with the idea, well, you've won the championships with me, but you still felt the need to have to go after the NXT Women's Championship. This wasn't enough for you. I guess that's the storyline narrative they're going to go with it. Fair enough, that is what it is. As for the heel turn itself, like I said, despite it being a bit rushed, very unfortunate with the botched skateboard, although it was quite humorous to watch. It was executed the way it was executed, and I think that, like I say, if this had been a long, more drawn out story, I think more people would have more connection to it. Now it's been so rushed, I think that everyone just kind of goes, okay, it's going to be a good match, it's going to be hopefully still a fun story how it will play out, but there's not enough reason to care for a lot of people, and I think that that's what's really going to hurt this story long term. We could have made two megastars out of two very young, ultra talented stars here who are going to definitely be two faces of women's wrestling in WWE for many, many years to come. These two could be top of the tree in NXT, perhaps even on a Raw, on a SmackDown one day, but to do this soon, it's not going to get either of them as far as it could do. The story clearly is to elevate Roxanne Perez to get her to the next level. Cora Jade, you could argue and say that she didn't get the job done as a babyface. She had multiple chances to do so, didn't get it done despite making a name for herself in War Games, getting championship opportunities against Mandy Rose. The fact that it looked like Roxanne Perez could be someone who could do it, jealousy has played its factor. So look, it can do something for both long term, and hopefully the story still will, but for me, I would have delayed this story for at least 2 to 3 months, give them a proper championship reign. But going back to those titles with the main roster and with NXT, maybe it's time to just get rid of them at this point. The WWE clearly don't have any care or any intention for them, but it does feel like you feel sorry for, Katana Chance and Kaden Carter, Toxic Attraction. We do have a couple of actual teams, Nikki ASH and Doudrop as well. We actually have a couple of teams that are building at the moment, and it would have been good to have a division. But if you're going to do it, I'd have one Women's Tag Team Championship going forward. Have it across the 3 brands. It's the only way it will work. There's no need for 2 sets of the championships, and to be fair, if it's not Toxic Attraction at this point, I don't know. I don't see WWE pushing it. That's just my personal opinion. So maybe it is time to drop those championships. But hey, that really is not a fun thing to say, because I did want to see that work out. It's just a shame WWE have never taken it seriously. Next question coming from a Noob and Co. What are your overall thoughts on the Asuka and Becky Lynch feud? Do you think it's the best feud of the year? I believe both Becky and Asuka earn the respect of the fans, especially Asuka. She deserves her flowers since coming back. This has been a really fun feud with these two. Personally for me, I'd go as far as to say top 5 in WWE this year. Certainly not feud of the year all around. Perhaps I'd give that to CM Punk and MJF probably still the top feud. From WWE, I'd probably go Cody versus Seth Rollins. I think that was probably the top feud there. But if you look at the two ladies, they definitely knocked it out the park. I think it was a bit unfortunate with circumstances, the amount of matches they had, but some of that was taken out of probably even WWE's creative hands at that point. But a best of what? Is it best of 5, best of 7 series they've had? Becky coming out on top in the end. Some great matches in and amongst that. The fact as well of holding Becky down at every opportunity. This was fun TV, and it definitely gave something Asuka to do coming back. Becky Lynch, her character's been unbelievable this year as well. Both have felt very, very important. So I think it puts both in good stead going forward. We now know that Becky Lynch is going for the Raw Women's Championship again, and of course to try and make that story with Bianca Belair, where perhaps Becky's the one on the roll and Bianca's the one losing matches. I like the way that dynamic is going this week. With Asuka now, it's going to be interesting to see what she'll do going next. Personally for me, she's a top contender for me to move over to SmackDown in the upcoming WWE draft. I could see a feud with her and Liv Morgan perhaps going towards the end of the year, whether it's babyface versus babyface or even a heel turn. At this point, I don't think it matters. I think it would be a great in-ring match, and it'll be quite fun to see how that will play out. So this storyline has done what it needs to do. It gets both talents over. Gives them some progression, and it gives them an elevated status in the division. So whatever they do next, it feels more important. So yeah, it's a good job done all round. But for me, I wouldn't quite call it feud of the year, but certainly it's definitely top 5 in WWE for sure. Next question coming from Aussie Podcast. Do you think they should make room for Honor No More on the Death Before Dishonor card? And if so, would you have them make an appearance, cut a promo, or have them on the match card itself? Yes, 100 times yes. I love this question. I think I did a bit of fantasy booking with this around Supercard of Honor time, but definitely Death Before Dishonor would be greatly benefited with Honor No More making an appearance on this show. I think definitely Impact and Ring of Honor should have some form of working relationship going forward. The Briscoes are going to be on Death Before Dishonor, going for the ROH World Tag Team Championships against FTR. So why not have a working relationship and to have Honor No More, a group, of course, that were a part of the old Ring of Honor, of course, have not got Honor anymore, of course, going into Impact Wrestling, trying to invade there. Perhaps they can even try and regain the territory and invade and take the Honor out of ROH now that it's run by Tony Khan. I think it's a perfect invasion storyline idea in my personal opinion. An appearance, definitely. I wouldn't have it as a match. I would have it as a takeover style invasion like angle, and you could build that for the next future show, where it leads all the way to maybe Final Battle at the end of the year. Remains to be seen. But what could really benefit with an invasion storyline of this is that Honor No More, yes, they work for Impact Wrestling now, but they have come in through the back door and they've kind of invaded Impact. You could say in recent months, they've not been as successful on Impact Wrestling and Impact TV. We look back to Slammiversary, for example, but the fact that they're not really fully associated as part of Impact, to go over to do an invasion angle in another promotion and then lose doesn't hurt Impact Wrestling either. So I think that this would be a good working relationship if they could make that happen. So for me, I would really like to see this go down. And if they were to attack somebody, it'd have to be someone that was really affiliated with Ring of Honor. Now, before his heel turn, Jonathan Gresham would have been the perfect candidate. So I'm not sure who it would be now necessarily, but hey, maybe someone like the Blackpool Combat Club could be quite fun. We've got Claudio, we've got Wheeler Yuta on the show, so certainly could be an idea. We'll have to see how it would play out if it was to ever happen. But Tony Khan, if you're watching, it's probably not. Make it happen. We'd love to see it go down. And just before I go to the next question, those are interested in my Ring of Honor Death Before Dishonor predictions, that video is dropping on this channel tomorrow. Next question coming here from YouTube from KXI. How would you book Jon Moxley's interim AEW title run with Brody King surprisingly being his first challenger? Maybe they'll be taking a different route with the contenders for the title. Do you know what? I think you could be right, but I think that could be a really good thing as well. I really enjoyed Jon Moxley against Brody King. Wasn't someone I was expecting to go against Jon Moxley, but it's great to see fresh and exciting matches on our TV screens each and every week. I want to see Jon Moxley being a fighting interim AEW World Champion. I like that story playing out, that Moxley fights almost every single week, whether it's a championship contenders match, which whatever they're doing, a championship eliminator match, I think they call it over there in AEW, against Takeshita. I thought that was a really outstanding match as well. Have a title match next week. Just have Moxley defend it against the top contenders. Really sort of establish himself as he is the top guy, and perhaps maybe he should be the rightful full-time AEW World Champion for when CM Punk returns. I love the idea as well that commentary even questioned the idea CM Punk watching this at home. How must CM Punk be feeling watching and knowing that when he comes back right now, he's going to have to face Jon Moxley? It really does put this match on a really even higher pedestal when it does eventually happen. Whether it's going to be at All Out, whether it's even going to be at Full Gear, we'll have to wait and see. But for me, Jon Moxley, fresh contenders, I'm more than down for that. I'd have him as a fighting champion, defending and keeping that title all the way until we get the dream match against CM Punk. That's the best thing to do at this stage. I know when I did a fantasy booking video before, I had MJF coming in and having the problem with Jon Moxley, but at this stage now, if MJF is in this work shoot environment, if that ever is going to happen, it probably should make sense that he would come back and challenge CM Punk if CM Punk is going to be the one to keep the championship once they have that unification match. But hey, in the meantime, Moxley should just keep being Moxley at his most violent best, defending that championship and, you know, winning each and every week on AEW television. Last question this week coming from Underground Temple. According to some wrestling articles, AEW are planning on bringing in the Trios titles at All Out. They're planning on having a Triangle Trios match for the inaugural championships. House of Black versus Andrade, Rouge and Dragon Lee versus the Lucha Bros and Bandido. Would you change anything? Finally, if those Trios Championships are finally coming in, because, well, we've been waiting for them for the longest time. The last I'd read on this, Tony Khan was wanting Kenny Omega back for these Trios Championships. I'm guessing that he and the Young Bucks would have been the inaugural champions. And of course, I think they would have been going against Adam Cole and Red Dragon. That storyline's really took a hit, hasn't it? With like so many injuries in amongst that lot right now. But in the meantime, I guess perhaps maybe the right thing to do is to move on. And if you're going to have that match, that sounds like a really exciting prospect. I mean, we have seen House of Black against Death Triangle a lot this year, but still, I mean, that's probably the one change I would make. Instead of Bandido, I would have Pac in there because that's the complete trio. But I mean, if Pac isn't going to be in the States, Bandido would be a good fit. With, of course, you mentioned Andrade and Rouge there with Dragon Lee. There was a photo going around on the internet, of course, and there was seemed to be another sleeve of someone sitting down while they were sitting on a bench outside. Could that be Dragon Lee? It would make a lot of sense if it was to potentially be him. So yeah, if they were to do that, I think this would be a really exciting way to go about it. For me personally, I think great inaugural champions would be Andrade in his group with Rouge and Dragon Lee, because, well, they haven't really done anything stand out so much at the moment in AEW, well, especially Andrade. He's been there for a good year now. House of Black seems to have a lot of feuds going on right now, obviously now starting with Darby Allin and Sting as well. I'm excited to see how that will play out. And of course, like I mentioned, with Death Triangle there as well, having the problems there with Andrade and Rouge, it does seem to feel like it would click together in a way. So let's see, it could be quite exciting if it was to go down. But who would be your inaugural Trios champions in AEW? Let me know in the comments below right now. And of course, why not get involved with any question that's been discussed here on AskSCW. Thank you for everyone for your questions as always. And like I say, if you've enjoyed this video, then please do like it, share with a friend as well, subscribe to SCW. Many videos on the way this week on the channel, including Ring of Honor Death Before Dishonor predictions, as well as that what is the greatest SummerSlam event of all time. That video will be dropping on the channel as well. Myself and 20 other wrestling YouTube channels will be involved to decide what is the greatest SummerSlam event ever. In the meantime, do check out these videos on the side of your screen right now. Thank you for watching as always. You've been watching AskSCW here on YouTube. Take care and have yourselves a great day.